Dear students, I hope you remember that in the last class we have studied till passivation. We have completed the passivation phenomena. Now, today's topic is pitting corrosion. Pitting corrosion is basically a localized aerated because the exposed region again give rise to anodic and cathodic areas. Generally, the formation of pinholes or pits or cavities occur due to the scratches, or for example you can say local staining of the metal due to non-uniform stresses. For example, at some part we have high stresses while the pressure at the other part is low, and in some part there will be no pressure. So because of these non-uniform pressure on the metal surface, it results into the formation of such type of cavities. Further, alternating stresses, for example alternating stresses you can relate to, for example, on and off. Some stress is applied, then it is removed, then again stress is applied and then it is removed. So these are known as alternating stresses. Or impingement attack, when a liquid is flowing at a turbulent flow rate at high velocity, when liquid is flowing, that also causes impingement attack, or some metal from the surface is start deteriorating and getting dissolved into that turbulent flowing liquid. Because of that also some pitting corrosion occur. Even metals that are passive due to passivation, I told you that in case of passivation there is a formation of very thin and transparent film that is almost invisible to the eye. That layer, very thin and transparent layer formed, and that restrict further corrosion. And pitting is not passivation, I told you that it is not a permanent phenomena. Some metals under certain conditions, especially in oxidizing conditions, they form oxide layer which restrict or prevent further corrosion. So such metals in that particular condition are known as passive metals. So even passive metals show pitting corrosion whenever there is a formation of pits or cavities in those metals. In case of presence of impurities also, the rate of corrosion due to pitting accelerates. So there are three stages in case of this pitting corrosion. The first stage is the initiation, or you can say formation of pit. Once the pit is formed, a small pit is formed. You all know that when a small pit is formed or a small cavity is formed, over a period of time it keeps on developing, it keeps on evolving. So it goes over a period of time deeper and deeper, and because of its deep nature, or because of its growing nature, you can say that over a period of time that it becomes even more dangerous to the metal, because the metal that is present at the bottom of the pit, deep inside the metal body, that metal part, that metal region, due to oxygen unavailability, becomes anodic and start releasing electron. As you can see in the first bullet point, I have shown that metal releases electron in form of positive charge. Then these electrons travel through the metal, because electron travel through metal, ions travel through solution. It travels to the metal towards the upper side where oxygen is available in surplus. It reacts with oxygen, or you can say oxygen takes those electron to form O2 negative, and in presence of moisture the ultimate product is hydroxide ion. Then that hydroxide ion reacts with the positive metal ion to form metal hydroxide. In this way metal undergo deterioration and pure metal start converting into hydroxide and then to the oxide. Deeper the size of the pit, deeper the size of the cavity, lower will be the oxygen content and higher will be the rate of corrosion. जितनी बड़ी कैविटी होगी, जितनी डीप कैविटी होगी, ऑक्सीजन वहां पे उतनी कम होगी, एंड देयरफॉर पिटिंग कोरोजन का जो रेट है वो उतना ही ज्यादा होगा. Then comes another type of corrosion which is known as the intergranular corrosion. Intergranular corrosion occurs especially in case of alloys, when there are two different metals and they have in between them grain boundaries. For example, in case of steel, where we have iron and carbon. So because steel is an alloy, so intergranular corrosion takes place due to high rate of corrosion near the grain boundaries, because when alloys are produced, they are a mixture of more than two metals or a metal and a non-metal. So because of that, when the particles are mixed, they have different distinguished grain boundaries. So the rate of corrosion is near the grain boundary is always higher, which gives rise to intergranular corrosion. This form of corrosion is also associated with the chemical segregation effect. So basically, in case of intergranular corrosion, you can say it occurs when that metal or alloy contains a metal that is highly corrosive, along with the metal, along with the you can say component which is not corrosive. The corrosive liquid attack on the metal that is prone to corrosion, and because of that, the corrosion occurs along the grain boundaries only. For example, in case of welding of steel, stainless steel, since steel contains iron, carbon and chromium, stainless steel has this composition. So during the welding process, carbide is formed and it gets deposited. The concentration of chromium carbide is more near the grain boundaries, while its concentration is less near the grain center. So at the grain boundaries, because chromium is present in large amount or in higher percentage and it is anodic, it start releasing electron and undergoing corrosion, leaving the grain centers protected, while the grain boundaries, the boundaries between the grains start corroding. Therefore, it is known as intergranular corrosion. It happens only due to the deposition of metals near, which are more corrosive near the grain boundaries, as in case of stainless steel, where chromium reacts with carbon to form chromium carbide during welding and gets deposited more in higher percentage near the grain boundaries, and because of that, its high percentage near grain boundaries, it start releasing electrons. So this is the main mechanism of intergranular corrosion. However, this can be easily stopped if the size of the structure is not too large, because excessive deposition of chromium carbide near grain boundaries can be avoided by heating the metal uniformly. That structure uniformly, the chromium carbide that has been deposited near grain boundaries again uniformly distributed within the structure. But heating it uniformly up to high temperature is only possible when the structure is small. But if the structure is too large, it is very difficult to heat that structure uniformly, and therefore it is difficult to stop intergranular corrosion. So this is intergranular corrosion. You can say here in these are the grains clearly visible. So grains and these types of lines, these are grains. So through these grains, corrosion starts taking place, and this is only because of the deposition, excessive deposition of more corrosive metal near grain boundaries as compared to grain centers. Intergranular corrosion is insensitized steel, but it can be stopped or prevented by heating the metal uniformly. I mentioned here when a material contains different composition, for example in case of alloy, so intergranular corrosion occurs across the grain boundaries and it causes the alloy or the structure to loses its strength. So this is, and one more thing to be kept in mind is that intergranular corrosion occurs at microscopic level, means under microscopic images only you can see that corrosion, otherwise the corrosion won't appear to you, and it's slowly like a thief, it keeps on moving, keeps on deteriorating the metal, and over a period of time there will be failure of the structure without having any clear signs. There will be no clear signs because it is not visible to normalize. You can only have this type of images when microscopic images are taken. So these are the examples, especially stainless steel, nickel base, aluminum base alloys are prone to intergranular corrosion. Now these are the causes of intergranular corrosion. The first is due to the presence of impurities at the grain boundaries. Second is enrichment of one of the alloying element. For example, the alloying element, for example, if we are mixing chromium and carbon in iron, so enrichment of one of the element. For example, if chromium is enriched, higher percentage of chromium is present in iron, then there will be chances of pronounced intergranular corrosion. The third is depletion of one of the element that affects its corrosion resistance in grain boundaries areas. Depletion of that element that may result or that may restrict corrosion. So that also causes increased rate of intergranular corrosion. Small amount of iron in aluminium where insolubility of iron is low have been shown to segregate in the grain boundary and causes intergranular corrosion. This is similar to the segregation of chromium in steel. Same we have in this case when iron is present in aluminium, so we have similar kind of phenomena which is known as intergranular corrosion. Then comes the waterline corrosion. Waterline corrosion is the corrosion, for example, when we observe metal is dipped in a liquid or there is a steel tank which is filled with water, then you can say the corrosion occurs at an accelerated rate near the region which is immediately below the waterline. The part of the steel tank or the metal structure that is immediately below the waterline, you can see from this top layer of water, the region of the steel tank which is immediately below this, it experiences pronounced or accelerated rate of corrosion due to poor oxygenated areas, because immediately above this region in air there is excess supply of oxygen, and immediately below this water line we have limited supply of oxygen. The metal that is present in this particular region will experience low oxygen supply. Because of that, it immediately start reacting, it start acting as an anode and releasing electron. Once electrons are released, electrons immediately flow through this tank, steel layer of the tank, and then react with oxygen and moisture to form hydroxide, and the same hydroxide react with metal to form metal hydroxide. So the highest rate of metal is not at the bottom of the tank, but it is immediately below the water line. This type of corrosion causes great difficulty to the marine engineers while they were designing ships or some other like boats or ferries, because the region just where the ship touches the sea level, the region that is immediately below the sea level experienced highest rate of corrosion, and therefore the challenge for marine engineers is to keep that particular region protected from corrosion. For that they do certain kind of strategies. They, for example, sometimes they do some sort of coatings on the bottom of the ship, or they use certain other protection like anodic protection or cathodic protection in order to protect that particular region which is immediately below the water line from corrosion. Otherwise the ship from the bottom start corroding and very soon it may sink. So this is about waterline corrosion. I hope you like this video, and I hope you understand what is waterline corrosion, intergranular corrosion and pitting corrosion.